California's $500 billion energy mistake. How America is repeating Germany's disaster. Imagine you're a California resident in August 2020. It's 110 degrees outside, your air conditioner is cranking, and suddenly, click, the power goes out. Not because of a storm, not because of an earthquake, but because the fifth largest economy in the world, with some of the highest electricity rates on the planet, literally ran out of power. Your Tesla sits in the driveway, useless. Your refrigerator starts warming. And somewhere in Sacramento, a bureaucrat is explaining that this was all part of the plan. Now rewind 20 years and 3,000 miles to Germany. It's the year 2000. And the Germans are about to embark on the most ambitious energy transformation in modern history. They call it the Energiewende, the energy transition. The promise? A future powered entirely by wind and solar, free from the shackles of fossil fuels and nuclear power. The reality? Electricity prices that tripled, a grid that depends on coal-fired plants as backup, and a tab that's pushed past $500 billion with no end in sight. Here's the kicker. California looked at Germany's disaster and said, "Hold my organic kombucha. We can do that too." And now, America's most populous state is sprinting down the exact same path, toward the exact same cliff, with $500 billion of taxpayer money strapped to its back. Today, we're going to dissect how California is repeating Germany's catastrophic energy mistake. Here are the 9 reasons why this isn't just bad policy, it's a financial disaster that will ripple through the American economy for decades. To understand how California ended up in this mess, we have to go back to Germany in the year 2000. Picture this. The Berlin Wall has been down for a decade. Germany is reunified and riding high as Europe's economic powerhouse, and the Green Party just entered a coalition government for the first time. Environmental consciousness isn't just popular, it's practically a religion. Chernobyl is still fresh in everyone's memory, and climate change is becoming the defining issue of a new generation. On April 1st, 2000, Germany passed the Renewable Energy Sources Act, the Erneuerbare Energien-Gesetz, or EEG for short. This wasn't some minor policy tweak. This was a revolutionary promise. Germany would lead the world into a post-carbon future. Nuclear power? Gone by 2022. Coal? Phased out. The future belonged to wind turbines and solar panels, and Germany would show everyone how it's done. Now, imagine you're a German politician in 2000. You've got broad public support, the technology exists, and you're making a moral stand for the planet. The engineers say it's doable. The environmental groups are ecstatic. Your coalition partners are on board. You're literally saving the world. Why wouldn't you do it? Here's what made it seem so reasonable. Germany is an industrial and engineering powerhouse. If anyone could pull off a complete energy transformation, it would be the country that invented the automobile and rebuilt itself from rubble twice in 1 century. The logic was seductive. The science seemed sound. The will was there. But here's what they didn't see coming. Physics doesn't care about your politics, and the sun doesn't shine at night. So how did Germany plan to transform an entire nation's power grid? Enter the feed-in tariff, the financial engine that would drive the Energiewende. Here's how this beauty worked. If you installed solar panels or a wind turbine, the government guaranteed you would be paid a premium price for every kilowatt-hour of electricity you produced. Not for 5 years, not for 10 years, for 20 years. Locked in, guaranteed, no matter what. Think about it like this. Imagine if the government promised to buy every tomato you grew for the next 2 decades at 5 times the market price. You'd be an idiot not to become a tomato farmer, right? That's exactly what happened with renewable energy in Germany. Investors poured billions into wind and solar because it was essentially a government-backed ATM machine. But here's the catch. Someone has to pay for those premium prices. And that someone was every German electricity customer. The surcharge appeared on every power bill, a mandatory tax to fund the renewable revolution. In 2000, that surcharge was tiny, 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour. By 2013, it hit 5.3 cents per kilowatt hour, a 2,550% increase. Think about the scale required for that. Germany installed so many solar panels that by 2012, they had more solar capacity than the entire rest of the world combined at the start of the decade. On sunny days, solar would provide up to 40% of Germany's electricity. Incredible, right? This worked great. Until it didn't. Because there's one tiny problem with solar panels and wind turbines. They only work when the sun shines and the wind blows. March 11th, 2011. A 9.0 magnitude earthquake strikes off the coast of Japan, triggering a tsunami that kills nearly 20,000 people and causes a meltdown at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. Within 72 hours, German Chancellor Angela Merkel makes a decision that will define her legacy. Germany will shut down all of its nuclear reactors, not gradually, not after alternatives are ready. 8 reactors would close immediately. The remaining 9 would be phased out by 2022. Let me be clear, Fukushima was a tragedy, but Germany isn't on a tsunami-prone fault line. German reactors weren't 1970s designs like Fukushima. This was pure politics, a panicked response to public fear and Green Party pressure. And the energy experts knew it was insane. Here's what happened next. Germany lost 8.4 gigawatts of reliable to carbon-free baseload power overnight. That's enough electricity to power 8 million homes, gone in an instant. So what filled the gap? Solar and wind ramped up, sure. But you know what else ramped up? Coal. Dirty, carbon-spewing, lignite coal. The worst kind. By 2013, Germany was burning more coal than it had in years. Carbon emissions, which were supposed to be plummeting, actually increased. The country that was supposed to be leading the world's green revolution was choking on coal smoke because their wind turbines couldn't spin on command and their solar panels' chances were useless in NEAT. German energy economists warned this would happen. They published papers, they testified, they begged politicians to reconsider. It was obvious, they ignored it. Because admitting the plan had a fatal flaw would mean admitting the entire Energiewende was built on wishful thinking. But wait, it gets worse. Surely they fixed it, right? Oh, my sweet summer child. They doubled down. By 2014, German households were paying the highest electricity prices in Europe, more than 30 euro cents per kilowatt hour. That's triple what Americans were paying. A typical German family was spending an extra 270 euros per year just on the renewable energy surcharge alone. And it kept climbing. By 2020, German electricity prices hit 32 cents per kilowatt hour. For perspective, that's like paying $8 for a gallon of gas when your neighbor pays $2.50. But here's where it gets darkly ironic. The pain wasn't distributed equally. Large industrial companies, the big energy consumers, got exemptions to stay competitive. So who carried the burden? Regular families, small businesses, the middle class. The very people the Green Party claimed to represent were funding a wealth transfer to solar farm investors and wind turbine manufacturers. And the grid became a nightmare. Germany started experiencing something called negative prices, moments when electricity production was so high from wind and solar that prices went below zero. Sounds great, right? Free electricity. except someone still had to pay those guaranteed feed-in tariffs. And when production crashed on windless nights, prices would spike to absurd levels. The grid operators were paying neighbors to take excess power, then hours later paying through the nose to import it back. This is exactly what happened in California during the 2000 to 2001 energy crisis, when deregulation created price chaos and rolling blackouts. History repeating itself, but somehow with more self-righteousness this time. And just when you thought it couldn't get more absurd, California's politicians looked at this dumpster fire and said, "We need that here." August 14th, 2020. It's 6:30 p.m. in California, and the temperature is still hovering near 110 degrees across the state. Millions of people are coming home from work, cranking their air conditioners, making dinner. Electricity demand is peaking. And then, for the first time in nearly 20 years, California starts implementing rolling blackouts. Not because of wildfires, not because of equipment failure, but because the grid literally ran out of power. Here's what happened. California had spent the previous decade shutting down reliable power plants, natural gas facilities. The Diablo Canyon nuclear plant was scheduled for closure. Coal was already gone. The state had installed massive amounts of solar capacity, hitting its renewable targets, patting itself on the back. But as the sun set that evening, some solar generation dropped from 10,000 megawatts to zero in about 3 hours. And the wind? It decided not to show up. The grid operator, CAISO, watched in horror as the supply-demand curve diverged like scissors opening. They burned through every reserve. They bought power from every neighboring state. They begged industrial customers to shut down. And still, it wasn't enough. Over 2 days, more than 800,000 customers lost power, in the 5th largest economy on Earth, in the 21st century. Here's the devastating comparison. California has 40 million people and suffered rolling blackouts. Texas has 30 million people, endured a once-in-a-century ice storm in 2021 that paralyzed the entire state. And yes, their grid failed too. But California's blackouts happened on a normal summer evening with fully functioning equipment. Let that sink in. This wasn't a natural disaster. This was a policy disaster, meticulously planned and executed over a decade. Here's what they don't tell you about California's renewable energy mandate. It's the largest wealth transfer scheme in state history, and it's funded by every single person who pays an electric bill. Between 2011 and 2020, California utilities signed contracts worth over $50 billion for renewable energy projects. These weren't competitive bids in a free market. These were politically mandated purchases to meet arbitrary renewable targets. And who profited? A relatively small group of well-connected developers, private equity firms, and investors who knew how to navigate California's labyrinthine regulatory system. Take NextEra Energy, one of the biggest renewable developers in America. Their CEO, John Ketchum, saw his compensation hit $13.4 million in 2020. The company's stock tripled between 2015 and 2021 to riding the wave of mandated renewable purchases. You cannot make this stuff up. Meanwhile, average Californians saw their electricity bills double in a decade. But here's the smoking gun. In 2021, internal emails from the California Public Utilities Commission revealed that regulators knew the grid was becoming unstable as early as 2018. They had studies showing that closing reliable power plants before storage technology was ready would create blackout risks. And they did it anyway, because the political pressure to hit renewable targets overrode engineering reality. Former CPUC President Michael Peavy even admitted in testimony that utilities were encouraged to approve renewable contracts that weren't economically justified. The implicit message: hit your targets, and we'll let you pass the costs to ratepayers. Miss your targets, and we'll bury you in regulatory penalties. It's regulatory capture dressed up in environmental virtue. The people making the rules have zero personal stake in whether your lights stay on. But the consequences didn't stop there. Fast forward to today, and both California and Germany are living with the consequences of their decisions. Germany now pays approximately 36 euro cents per kilowatt hour, still the highest in Europe. When Russia cut off natural gas supplies in 2022, Germany had to fire up coal plants it had planned to retire and beg France for nuclear power imports. The country that was supposed to be the green energy model for the world became the cautionary tale. California? The average residential electricity rate hit 28 cents per kilowatt hour in 2023, more than double the national average. Pacific Gas and electric customers in some areas are paying over 50 cents per kilowatt hour during peak times. This is why your air conditioning bill in Sacramento costs more than your mortgage payment in August. And here's the three-layer reality. On the surface, California has installed 15 gigawatts of solar capacity and claims 60% renewable energy on its grid. Dig deeper, and you discover the state imports massive amounts of power from neighboring states, including coal and natural gas power from Arizona and Utah. At the expert level, you realize California has essentially outsourced its carbon emissions while taking credit for being clean. It's environmental accounting fraud. The California Energy Commission now projects that achieving the state's 2045 carbon-neutral goal will cost $500 billion. That's not a typo. $500 billion to completely rebuild the grid, install battery storage that doesn't yet exist at scale, and replace every fossil fuel power plant. And who pays for that? Look in the mirror. And Germany spent $580 billion on their Energiewende and still hasn't solved the intermittency problem. California is sprinting down the same path with its eyes wide shut. This isn't just history. This is your future electric bill. Here's the brutal truth that nobody in Sacramento or Berlin wants to admit. Renewable energy isn't failing because solar panels and wind turbines don't work. They work fine. The policy is failing because we're shutting down reliable power plants before we've solved the storage problem. We're putting the cart before the horse, then acting surprised when the horse kicks us in the face. Germany proved the theorem. California is showing the work. You cannot run a modern industrial economy on intermittent energy sources without massive battery storage or reliable backup power. And if your backup power is coal and natural gas, you haven't actually solved the carbon problem. You've just made electricity brutally expensive while pretending you did. The tragedy isn't that we're pursuing renewable energy. So the tragedy is that we're doing it backwards. Keep the nuclear plants running. They're carbon-free and reliable. Build the solar and wind. Invest heavily in battery technology and grid-scale storage. And only when the storage actually works at scale do you start closing the baseload plants. It's not complicated. It's just not politically convenient. What happens next? California will continue bleeding businesses and middle-class families who can't afford $500 monthly electric bills. More states will flirt with California's model, and more will face the same crisis. And somewhere in Germany, an engineer will shake his head and mutter, "Wir haben euch gewarnt. We warned you." If you found this financial autopsy as infuriating as I did writing it, smash that subscribe button. We're diving deep into the money disasters that governments don't want you to understand. Let me know in the comments, is your state next? And check out our next video. The laws of physics don't care about your politics, and your electric bill is the receipt.